Rapid Hit and Headseeker, Rapid Hit and Rampage, Kill Clip and Headseeker, Kill Clip and Rampage, Kill Clip with Kinetic Tremors, Slideways and Elemental Capacitor. These are just a few of the incredible perk combinations that this weapon can roll with. Between them, the gun's feel, and being a lightweight frame, I think that this could very well be one of the best pulse rifles we've ever had. Let's begin. Chattering Bone is a fully craftable lightweight kinetic pulse rifle that's part of the recently reprised weapon set from the Last Wish raid. Comparing stats with its archetype siblings, Stay Frosty and Battlescar, Chattering Bone is well clear of the latter, but Stay Frosty ships with 5 more range and 1 more zoom point, which undoubtedly helps the gun's overall feel, albeit with a worse perk pool. Ultimately, it matters little, as this gun is essentially in a class of 1, being permanently available as a craftable weapon and not dependent on seasonal activities or world drops. The only gun that really comes close to its utility and performance is the BXR Battler, but that's in a different slot altogether. As I mentioned before, there's a truly staggering number of excellent perk combinations that work in this gun's favor. In this video, I'll show you my recommendations of what to craft, but first we need to understand just what this weapon is and what it's good for. In PvE, I went straight to Neomuna to put this primary through its paces. Being locked to a -15 power delta means that weapons will hit a lot less harder than normal content, truly allowing you to see how capable any one gun actually is. What I found was that Chattering Bone as a lightweight did an okay amount of damage from a neutral state, with its high handling and reload speed being surprisingly well suited to handle enemy dense content. It definitely struggles with major enemies, as do most primaries, but the low damage profile of the lightweight archetype make them feel quite bullet spongy, even with a major spec mod equipped. That being said, when a damage perk procs, this becomes a different story altogether. Pulse rifles recently got a 20% buff to their base damage in PvE, and that buff comes alive when Rampage, Kill Clip, or even Focus Fury kicks in. It doesn't quite feel at SMG levels, but it's enough to make you notice and appreciate just how much damage you're doing. Kinetic Tremors also works well, but more from an ad management standpoint. The shockwaves damage anything within a 5 meter radius up the point of where it procs. Sadly, the shockwaves aren't attached to the enemy that it triggers on, and in its base form it requires 12 hits to proc or 4 consecutive bursts. When enhanced, it'll do it in 1 less burst or 9 hits. It'll definitely come in handy for major enemies that don't move around as much, like a Cabal Colossus, but the raw damage it does isn't anything special. Sadly, I didn't see any change in damage numbers when I procced it with Kill Clip active. It seems like it's doing a set amount of damage that's related to the gun's base damage. As of Season of the Deep, there's no champion mod to justify using this weapon in endgame content, but it passes the vibe check with flying colors for the double damage perk combinations in Kill Clip and Rampage or Focus Fury. If you manage to get a roll or can craft it, it's worth playing around with. Plus, pulse rifles are a bit of a favored son by Bungie. If there isn't a champion mod for that season, chances are the next season will have one. In PvP, this is an excellent dueling weapon. The lightweight frame allows for quicker movement, the greater stability ensures less flinch and more hitting of shots, and the high handling ensures you've always got your gun ready to go or give you the option to switch to something else if needed. The snappiness of how you can engage and disengage reminds me a lot of Rose, the lightweight hand cannon, but of course being a pulse you're more likely to be further out and on the ground. The time to kill is 0.87 seconds, the same as a 140 RPM hand cannon, and it operates roughly within the same engagement spaces too. This is a mid-range weapon for very mid-range fights that sharply falls off when you pull back and gets severely exposed when you try anything closer. SMGs are still running rampant, and Graviton Lance right now is dominating sniper lanes, so to find success with this weapon you have to find that middle ground and make it your own. This means purposefully playing within the mid-range, taking in the opponents and their movement, making sure you're following the 40-60 and 2-second rules at all times, and having enough game sense to know when to push forward or pull out. Because of the meta right now, it's a gun that asks a lot of its user, but if the user can respond, it can be a joy to use. And then there's the perks. Of all the combinations I've tried, I can't get over Headseeker and Kill Clip. Headseeker does absolutely nothing to the time to kill or the bullet requirement, needing the same 7 crits in one body across all resiliences, but what it does do is boost the stickiness to absurd levels and make the gun feel harder to miss with than to hit. With Headseeker, you'll get that kill, then you'll reload for Kill Clip and get a 2-burst capable weapon. If a 2-burst isn't on the cards, then what it will do is massively amp up the versatility of the weapon, allowing you to push your effective range out longer thanks to the boosted damage profile. In 6s, this is a supremely comfortable weapon to use, but in 3s, it really does come down to what you can make of it. The lower damage profile and the relatively abject time to kill will mean that you'll struggle against aggressive teams, but if you're on a map with a bit of space and you've got the chops to handle whatever the enemy throws at you, this could be a great option to have to counter Immortals. Hopefully, you're interested by now, which begs the question, How the bloody hell do you craft something with this many good rolls? For both PvP and PvE, there are different applications, but we need to establish a baseline here to build off. I want to credit my friend Lego LaFlash for creating this approach to crafting. It's super smart and he does it across all his weapon reviews. Please go check him out, link down below. The fundamentals involve a deep understanding of what this weapon is, what it can do, and what it can't do. In the case of Chattering Bone, fundamentally this is a 3-burst pulse rifle. If you're going to hit your shots, it's in your best interest to keep the recoil under control. And for pulses, that is prioritizing stability, because the amount of bounciness your pulse has is directly related to the gun's stability stat. Here's a firing test comparison in the Enclave, shooting at the wall so you can see the bullet distribution. The one on the left has the gun's base stability value of 52, and the one on the right has 82 stability. You can already tell that both aren't great, but you can see that the 82 stability has much less bounciness overall. Now in this test, the left-hand side has 87 recoil direction but 52 stability, and the right is unchanged with the 82 stability and the base 57 recoil direction. Let's start with the left. And now play the right. The right's bounciness is far lower, but you can still see it pulling off to the side. The left's bounciness is high, but it's more predictably straight. The recoil direction affects the directional trends of the bursts themselves, while stability affects how much the gun recoils between each bullet. So if you have less recoil between each bullet, you can control its natural sway much better. In an ideal world, you have a blend of both. So to demonstrate, this final test is our roll with 87 recoil direction and 52 stability. And the one on the right is my recommended roll with 82 recoil direction and 77 stability. Isn't that lovely? The big trade-off here is range. It's possible to juice the range of Chattering Bone, but it will come at the cost of stability. That extra 1 to 2 meters as a result is kind of great in PvP, but if I'm dueling, I don't want the added flinch. It's not a long-range weapon, and it's easier for me to personally adjust my playstyle and positioning than to deal with the random nature of flinch. Of course, this means I'll be closer and more liable to short-range players, but that's a compromise I'm willing to make. For you, it may be a different story. In PvE, range isn't as big of a deal, so the extra stability makes a lot of sense to help keep those bullets steady. So for our fundamentals, we'll be prioritizing keeping that recoil in check. But we don't want to totally ignore recoil direction either. Right off the rip, I'm going for a range masterwork. This will make sense in a second. For barrels, I'm going with chambered compensator, which adds 10 recoil direction and stability at the cost of 5 handling. The handling is already this gun's best attribute, so the compromise is worth it. And for magazines, I'm going with steady rounds, which will be our biggest contributor to stability, adding 15. It guts our range by 5, hence the masterwork to offset it. The net result is that we're at 38 range, 77 stability, 65 handling, and a much more manageable 67 recoil direction. To make it even better, throw on a counterbalance mod to turn that 67 recoil direction to 82, and you'll get the same recoil pattern that we saw from that final test. Now, let's talk about PvE perk options. Kill Clip and Rampage is my favorite roll on this by far, and it's what I'm going for. If you're using this gun in PvE, there's only one real use. Add clear to the 9s. You want as much damage as possible, and these perks stack with each other. Play it right and you'll have Rampage X3 up pretty much all the time, and Kill Clip can be steadily refreshed. You may want to invest in a loader perk for your build to help reload speed, but honestly it's pretty good as is. Another thought is Rapid Hit and Rampage, which frees up your fundamental perks to go into handling or range, but I'd rather the double damage potential with this archetype personally, even if 100 stability feels really good. The only other perk that might stand out here is Kinetic Tremors, but honestly I don't think it does enough damage. That being said, it doesn't have a 50% precision requirement like Focus Fury, and its uptime will be higher as a result. It's definitely useful for trickier situations where damage has to be done in fits and spurts, rather than being able to sit and beam an enemy. I'm thinking something like Grandmaster Nightfalls. For PvP, it's Kill Clip and Headseeker. End of story. Or is it? Funnily enough, there's been more than a few people who have said to me that Kinetic Tremors is a wildcard option for dealing with Overshield Titans. Since it procs on location, if you catch a Titan just right, you can ping some shockwaves that will not only take down their shield, but also themselves. It's a fairly easy counter though, they just move away from the tremor location, but neutralizing that overshield was the whole idea anyways. As for some other perks, Keep Away in the third column isn't a bad shout, as the extra range does come in handy a lot. Rangefinder will help boost the weapon out of its range band and into high impact pulse territory, while Slideways is just an excellent complement to the lightweight playstyle, involving a lot of movement. That being said, Rangefinder is being changed in the near future to no longer affect zoom, so your mileage may vary. In column 4, Rampage works as advertised and with X1 reduces the bullets to kill by 1 for all resilience values. If you're a stasis main, Elemental Capacitor will boost the recoil direction by 25 to 82, which is more than manageable by itself and potentially frees you up to focus more on range if you don't mind the base recoil amount. Harmony should also be in the conversation as well for aggressive players using their special weapon of choice. But I keep coming back to Headseeker just because of the extra aim assist. I know, hit your shots, but it just feels so good, and it's so easy to proc on a pulse rifle. Aim for the chest, and the natural recoil will give you body, head. Free aim assist is hard to turn down in Destiny 2. So with those recommendations given, let's be honest for a second here. Is this really one of the best legendary kinetic pulse rifles? It's got stiff competition. Messenger is back with a great perk pool, Disparity hits like a truck with all the right perks, and Peace of Mind continues to exist outside the realms of physics. What we've got here is essentially what Rose is to hand cannons, and whilst it doesn't have stocks or grips, it's got more than enough customization for you to choose just what kind of experience you want. For PvE, double damage perks are enough of a sell to comfortably make this the best kinetic pulse in the game. Disparity may have Headstone, Frenzy, and One for All, but its low handling and clunky reload speed is not everyone's cup of tea, especially in environments like Neomuna. For PvP, there's none of the staple consistency perks here aside from Headseeker, Rangefinder, and Keep Away, but the experience on offer allows you to go higher. Against tough opponents, maybe you'd want the higher damage profile of Messenger, and in 6s maybe you'd want the versatility of higher zoom pulses like Peace of Mind. But despite all of that, I don't think that Chattering Bone is very far behind. It really depends on the user, and I think more aggressive players will favor the package it offers more, because once you get it going, it absolutely flies. It's precisely because of that experience that I find myself strongly drawn to Chattering Bone in PvP, because it does something that the others don't do nearly half as well. It dares you to be better. But what do you think? Leave a comment below with your thoughts, or swing on by to the Twitch stream where I'll be live every Tuesday and Thursday 1 hour after reset. Hope you enjoyed this review. As ever, a huge thanks to the patrons who continue to make these videos possible. My name is Ascendant Nomad, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.